Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. All right, Chad. Man, let's start with this. You re-signed with the UFC, a new four-fight deal. What does that symbolize? This new contract for you?
Man, that's everything for me. That was the biggest phone call I've ever had in my professional career. More than the initial offer for Contender Series, more than getting signed, because those are all tests. They want to see what I'm all about, and then I prove it to them. It's pretty raw. They know everything about me after the first contract. They have watched me fight against the guys they want. They know what people they've sent me, what I've accepted, what I haven't, timelines. They know how professional you are for getting your shit done on time. And yeah, it was a really big feather in the cap to get re-signed because they had a raw look at me and they liked it and they wanted more. It felt great, man. It really remotivated me, just to know I'm getting that mutual respect coming back. And yeah, it just fires me up, man. I was super excited for it.
Yeah, it's no surprise. I mean, you've always been professional. That's something that you've always been. So it's nothing new. Let's start with that last fight earlier this year in March. You got the unanimous decision over a really tough opponent, like one of the best prospects coming up. A young guy as well. And before that fight, you were sitting on two losses for over like a couple of years, basically. And you were heading into this fight, last fight on your contract. Was it the last fight on your contract?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So how was that handling all that? Was that like fighters usually before fights they're not going to reveal too much, but now it's all over with. How was that handling all of that?
It wasn't that bad. Like there's pressure, but there's always pressure. You always want to do well. You always want to win. The fact that if a win means you get another fight or not, come fight night, that shit doesn't really matter. You're just in a fight, so you're just trying to win. I pushed myself hard. I knew my back was against the wall, so that brings out the best of me. It usually does, and I know the UFC didn't see the best of me yet. I knew I had a lot more to offer, and that fight gave me a better opportunity to really show out a bit. So I'm super satisfied the way it went, but I'm not surprised. My team's not surprised. A lot of people probably thought I was going to lose that fight or that, he was the up and comer. I was on the way out. But in my mind, I was just getting started. Like they're just starting to see the real me in the UFC now. So, yeah, man, it was just another day at the office. But obviously, the repercussions of it were a lot higher. But for me, fight night, it was just about getting in there and getting to work.
And when you stepped in and got to face off against him and you spent 15 minutes with him, what I mean? Like what were some of the things that you prepared in camp, like maybe part of the game plan that worked really well?
I knew for sure he thought he was going to be able to strike with me and then he'd change his mind. And that's exactly what happened. I started landing harder shots. I was chewing up the leg, and that was all part of his game plan that I shut down. So we knew what phase two was. We had to stay up because he was going to try and wrestle, but I didn't think he had the type of wrestling that can really put me down. So all that cage work we did, all the defense while chipping away at the elbows, that was not in the moment. That was all planned. I wasn't rushing to get off of there. I was letting them get tired and then piecing them up on the feet. That fight of all my fights just really went exactly to plan like we thought. So it made it easy for me in there because I didn't have to think or adapt a whole lot. Everything was step by step. That one felt real good for me and for the coaches for sure.
So when you guys went back and of course you rewatched the wins, you rewatched the losses. You kind of like all at yourself. Your coaches are probably patting themselves on the back, which is really good to be in that position.
Yeah, we always have good game plans. Obviously things happen, but that one felt good for me. Just it's almost like giving one back to the coaches. They didn't have to do a lot. I was in control of that fight from start to finish, and it was right with the game plan. It's what I said I was going to do. I was in shape. Everything about it that we wanted, I did that night. So that was one of the only nights, and my coach even joked about it. He's like, "Man, I showed up and I kind of just watched as a fan. Like you had it all under control, and a couple key things here and there. But that one went to plan. It felt real good for us and the team, and really was a good reminder that we're doing the right things. We know what we're doing out there."
For sure. And that was March, man. We're heading into November pretty soon. Like why did it take so long to get re-signed and get rebooked for a new fight?
That was all due to my hand. I messed up my hand in that fight, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting. So even talking to my manager, he's got a lot of experience with my management is Sucker Punch. He wanted to re-sign when we signed a new fight, so he was waiting till I was ready to fight to do the re-signing at the same time. And he kept checking in, and I kept saying like, "Man, my hand just is not better yet." Just from that Charlampos fight, I did some damage to it. So finally, once the thumb was okay, gave the green light, and then everything fell into place. All of a sudden, it was Edmonton was right around the corner, the new contract, like everything just went perfect. So yeah, we're real excited to get it going.
So how long did the hand take though? To
Yeah, months. Yeah, it took months to be at 100%. Like like any injury, it was back and I was training, but I didn't feel confident jumping into a training camp and being able to make it all the way through. So I wanted to give it the right amount of time and get it healed up. Plus, I was feeling great, good win, enjoyed the summer, let the hand heal. I wasn't in a huge rush, but then coming out of this end of summer, it was time to get back to work. So.
For sure, and now you got, you go from like a prospect to like a super gritty veteran in Cody Gibson. What do you think of him and the fighting style?
I mean, I respect the hell out of him for sure. Definitely a game opponent. Um, I've said this before in other interviews too, but I mean, the UFC says a lot without saying a lot. The way that they match me up, I know what they want. I know what they expect out of this fight. It's why we're on the card. We have a job to do out there, and that's to be gritty and beat the hell out of each other. And I'm going to do my part of the job 100%. So I know I can make an exciting fight no matter how I have to, but I'm not going to have to try too hard with Cody. So he wants it too. So I mean, as soon as that name was on the paper, I know what the job is, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, he was kind of, had his back against the wall and is, heading into his last fight, went in there and got the first round finish. Really good performance. What do you think of that?
Yeah, man, he steamrolled him. He looked really good. It looks like he is, really finding his footing really well in the UFC. I'm not sure what's changed for him. I know had a long career and a lot of ins and outs, but he looks good, man. He 100% belongs. We're both coming off pretty dominating wins, so I'm expecting a real tough fight.
Yeah, and you get to fight in Edmonton. How far is that from where you're from?
Yeah, it's like under 3 hours just up the road. So man, it's the first time in so long I'm fighting in Alberta, and it's just not getting on an airplane to fight is just crazy to me. I'm really looking forward to it, and I've been around for so long and fought for so long locally that I got a real big group of people that are supporting me, and these aren't people supporting me just because they watch the UFC and I'm a local guy. These are guys who you know, know me from high school, know me from fighting around shitty casinos around Calgary, like they've been around my whole career, so it's going to be a real fired up night. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's like a milestone moment kind of for your career, right?
Yeah, I look at this fight a little bit differently in a lot of ways because it's like, oh, it's your hometown, I got all this stuff, but I really feel like I earned it, and I really want to feel positive about the whole fight experience. Like I earned it, and I don't want to blow my head up too big because I know where I'm at respectively, but I'm the only Albertan on the card, and maybe I had a hand in getting it here. It feels pretty good to, I'm always making an impact on the martial arts scene, running my own gym. I've got my own students. We have our own fight team. I'm doing my own fights. And now this is another little notch. I feel like, bring the UFC to my backyard. So I just got to go out there and have some fun with it.
So with training camp, is it's the same, like same cast and crew for you.
Yeah, man. I need nothing else. We got a killing team. I got the best training partners, the best coaches, and I've got full commitment, man. My team supports me so much. Like I have a lot of programs running at my gym. My gym's only been open about a year and a half, so that it's busy. I got a lot of shit to do. Class is getting started. I'm still doing a lot of it myself. I literally got my head coach coming in to run my morning classes so that I can get some extra sleep. I've got my Muay Thai coach coming in to run some of my Muay Thai classes so I can get extra training. And just the support of a real team like that and our resources is, man, I can't find, I could never find anything like that anywhere else. So I'm super fortunate.
And you have your own fight team, so you could kind of, pick some training partners from your own team to take with you to, Champions Creed, I believe, and train over there and kind of give you the looks maybe that you need.
100%, man. And I got full support from my team. They're the best. Like here's an example of a guy that was fighting for an amateur title on Saturday night here locally. He lost his fight. Ethan, he's a great fighter. Just kind of got caught in a submission. So not injured or anything. Everybody's kind of bummed, but he's a 145 or a pretty good partner for me. He was there Sunday morning for MMA sparring. That is literally less than 12 hours from fighting for a title, coming off a loss, and everybody could be all, beaten down on himself, but the team was there. They knew I needed training partners, and they were there. So big big respect for my team for sure.
And you're an older guy. You got the young guys coming in. They're looking at you and they're like, "He's in the UFC, I need to get my rounds with him." It keeps you young, right?
Oh hell yeah, man! I can't slip up at all. These guys are chomping at the bit, man. Like we do our runs together. We run hills and stairs together as a team, and I got to put on that. I got to be the leader. It's like I can't let these guys get past me. Even though, fuck, some days I'd love to, take a little bit off the gas, but I can't, man, because these guys will blow past me, and yeah, it keeps me going 100%.
Yeah. Also, in this event, it's the first event where the new rule changes come into effect. So like 12 to 6 elbows. Where do you think that those can be utilized the best? I don't think it's on the ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the 12 to 6 one I don't think has that big of an effect because we've been playing in the gray area there for so long now that everybody already kind of knows when you would use it and not because we've been using those slight angles. It's not like it's coming out of completely anywhere. So there might be a few scenarios that are a little bit different, but I actually think the elbow one makes a all it really does is take pressure off the refs, in my opinion. I don't think it changes much for the fighters. Um, the elbow is very similar to what it was before. But the downed opponent will definitely be one people got to pay attention to. We are paying attention to it in my camp, and yeah, somebody could set some UFC records by getting some first knockouts with some different rule changes, and it ain't going to beat me on the other end. So we're making sure that we're staying tight on it.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like how those will affect. But like you said, the lesser the referee is interfering with the fight, the better for the fighters.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I was really happy to see that rule. Even the down opponent rule is similarly designed to take a little bit of pressure off the refs because it's putting them in a really difficult position with that elbow rule and with the down opponent, and it can really drastically affect the fight. So it's not really fair to the refs. I didn't think so. I think this rule takes a little bit of the weight off of them, which is going to make better refing in general anyway. So yeah, I think it's all good.
What do you expect in this fight? I mean, I think a lot of people are expecting, a war because both you guys can go to war when necessary. But in your eyes, like, how do you see it?
Yeah, man, blood and guts, 100%. We're gonna beat the hell out of each other. I know Cody's tough, and he doesn't quit, and he's not gonna get overwhelmed by the moment. He's not gonna quit mentally. I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna get overwhelmed by the moment. So we're just gonna go in there and really push each other to the max. I expect it to be everywhere: wrestling, grappling, jujitsu, striking against the cage, in the open, flying knees. Like I really see it being a real showcase fight. Yeah, I'm looking forward to showing some heart and some toughness, but I got a ton of skill to back it up too. So I'm feeling really confident.
But what is it? You're 37 years old. Now that you see fighters that are fighting much later into their careers, and some people say it's the sports science. Like back 10 years ago, they didn't have this type of science that you have now with the recovery and everything. What is it for you?
It's definitely not that because I don't do much different, man. I live a pretty normal life, but I think it's the coaching and just knowing when to train safely, when to take breaks, how to train in an environment that nurtures skill development without beating up our bodies. So I do think coaches were a little bit more old school and really wanted to push your fighter, and excuses just were not tolerated. But I think that there's a little bit more of an educated eye on fighters now, and coaches are looking out for them instead of just pushing them through hell. Now I'm not saying you don't need to go through some stuff like that because you do. I'm lucky. I've said this to my fighters too. It's like I kind of got both worlds in my come up. Like when I started early, luckily I was young. I was in my young 20s, so we could beat the hell out of each other, train every day through injuries. Like it was Wild West. And then later in my career, I started training a lot smarter, and it just happened to time out with my age and with my career trajectory. So for me, I got both, which gives me a lot of the skills that I have. But long term, I'm really glad to see the bit of a transition for fighters and what it means to be a fighter. So coaches, I think, is the main change, not necessarily all the other bullshit and nutritionists and cold plunge, whatever you want to call it. That shit doesn't change. It's the coaches and the mentality, I think.
And around the world, you got kids, starting MMA much younger than, from like 10, 15, 20 years ago. And some of these teenagers are so good. So you have any like in your gym, like where you're like, oh man, these kids are so much more advanced than I was back at that age.
Oh hell yeah, man! We got two guys that are some of my main training partners. One is 15, and the other is 18. The 18-year-old was just fighting for a title on Saturday as well, an amateur title. Like these kids are so skilled, so tough, so and they're young. They just got that that youngness to them that they don't get tired, they don't quit, they can go every day. But yeah, man, I get real pushes from these guys. Like I'm not afraid to say it. These guys are young guys, they're amateur guys, but they bring a different kind of mentality at that age. And yeah, man, those guys would murder me when I was that age. Like it's not even comparable. So it's cool to see the evolution of the sport for sure. Now I do believe that fighting, not martial arts, but fighting has a little bit of a time period on it. So the earlier guys start, the earlier they're probably going to be done. If you don't start till a bit later, you can go a bit later. I typically see. So hopefully that's not the case. They continue to train smart, but it's hard to be that good, that dedicated in your training. Like,
All right, one last thing. I'll let you go after this one. Bantamweight division. Rob is the new champion. Do you see his reign lasting long at the top, or do you feel like the competition is just too stiff nowadays?
yeah, he's got the tools to stay there for a while, I think. But all the guys at that level, the top 5, top 10, anybody could win any night. So it's like the likeliness of staying champion comes down to more to how frequent they defend it, because the odds just eventually run out. Like they're anything could happen any night, especially with all these skilled guys. So I think he's got a lot of the tools to stay there. But yeah, man, there's a lot of killers knocking at the door. So yeah, you can't say anything too sure.
November 2nd, UFC Fight Night in Edmonton. Chad will probably have the biggest amount of supporters in the arena, so check it out. Thank you so much, Chad, for the time, and all the best in the fight.
Thanks, buddy. Love our interviews. Thanks, man.